Our next speaker is Dr. Fran Assaf. She's going to be talking to us about how to detox for health. She's going to be discussing the sources and effects of toxicity on the body and strategies to detoxify and improve our health. She is a holistic chiropractor with so many credentials on here that I'm going to introduce her and let her tell you her credentials. Please help me welcome Dr. Fran Assaf.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, Dr. Julie Royal, if you were just here, gave me a wonderful intro because her last step was detoxifying for health. And today what I want to talk to you about is to try to give you a big picture of where these toxins are coming from. And this wonderful lady sitting by me just said I have to detox all the time. And this is on our minds, it's in our conversation. And what I would like to do is to tell you why this is happening, where it's coming from, and what you can do to help yourself to live healthier in a toxic world. So first of all, let me tell you about toxins in general. They are all synthetic. They are not organic, they are not biodegradable, and what makes them a toxin in the first place is that when they come into our bodies, it's not something that our body was ever designed or created to deal with, so they accumulate in the body. You know, the chemicals and things that we talk about, the food additives and things like that, the body does not know how to break them down like they do a carbohydrate or a protein, and so it has two choices. The body can either store it, or it can try to push it out, and it takes a lot of energy because it's an unnatural process. So what happens is this: the vast majority of the stuff that comes into our bodies that's not organic, that's not broken down, is actually stored. It gets stored in our tissues, like our fat tissues, and it's my belief that most of our cellulite has to do with toxins that are caught in those tissues. They get stored in our organs, especially our liver, which is our primary detox organ. It gets stored around in different parts of our body, and a lot of times, you know, we're all worried about gaining weight, and you know, we're gaining weight, we don't know how to lose it, nothing works. And what happens often is that the body actually creates more fat, or it creates more fluids in order to keep those toxins separated from the important parts of our bodies, like our heart and our other organs. And so the body is trying its very best to have all these defense mechanisms in order to protect us from this onslaught of things that it was never, like I said, designed to deal with. So a lot of weight gain, I found in my practice, is due to toxins. And on my little sheet that I'll give you on a handout, for about the last 6 years, I've been the staff chiropractor at the Environmental Health Center in Dallas, which is, some of you may have heard of it, it's a clinic for severely toxic individuals. And I have seen many, many sad cases of people who have been exposed to antibiotics and environmental chemicals where they work, things like that. And most of the people are either extremely overweight or they're very, very skinny. And what happens is either the body throws everything off or it holds everything in. So one of the major causes of diseases also these days, and really weird symptoms, like you go to a doctor and you say, I feel this or that, but they can't find anything. A lot of those root causes are toxicity. So where does this stuff come from? Well, first of all, let's start like the big picture, okay, air. The air we breathe. These days, there's no such thing as good air or clean air. You can go out to the country, or you can go to Idaho or places like that. But the issue is now, it's better, lesser or better. But we know that the air all over our planet has become totally contaminated because even in the South Pole and in the North Pole, they have done ice samples where they'll take a core sample of ice, even in some of the icebergs and some of the deep snow that's been there for years, and down 2 or 3 feet, they will find samples of pesticides and other industrial chemicals. And you know there's no farming in the South Pole, and there's also no bugs. So you know that it had to migrate there in the prevailing winds around the planet. And about 4 or 5 years ago, the statistic was that combined, we were pouring about 2.5 billion pounds of toxic chemicals into our air. Well, today, scary as it sounds, we're now pumping 4 billion pounds per year of chemicals into the air. And that's all the developed countries. The major culprits would be chemical manufacturers themselves and all of the products that come out the smokestacks of people like paper manufacturers, the places that burn fossil fuels and coal to heat our homes and create electricity. We're one of the culprits too, because that includes the combined emissions of all our cars that we drive on the roads. Here in North Texas, we have a pretty major polluter, and that's the cement companies that are out in the Midlothian area and outside the big cities. And these guys, cement, it takes a lot of power to make cement. You make cement and it takes 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit to burn it in the furnace. And so for them, it's in their best interest to find low-cost types of fuel to burn to make that much heat. So what they're doing is they're burning tires, they're burning other hazardous waste, which is a very cheap or free fuel to them, but for us, it is affecting our asthma, it's affecting our allergies, it's hurting us very badly, and they're one of the major polluters in North Texas. So if you don't know about that, there are several watchdog groups that you might even just Google on the computer. It's a severe problem. And then if you think about in our air, just the stuff that's in our air, flora and fauna, like ragweed and mountain cedar and things that really drive us crazy this time of year, we are more sensitive to that stuff now, mainly because we've been sensitized to all the other junk that we're breathing. A couple of other things. Pesticides are a severe airborne problem. And you could say, well, we don't have a lot of farming in the Dallas area, but pesticides have a half-life of about 40 years. They don't die. In addition, you can have pesticides blown on the wind for hundreds of miles. And that's kind of how they got up to the South Pole and the North Pole and places like that. There's a lot of runoff of pesticides that comes into the water as well. And, you know, this summer, past summer, not so much, but last summer there was almost nightly spraying for mosquitoes along all the streets in the city. People had to stay off the streets. The patients that I work with were getting sick when they would go out in the morning because that lingering heaviness of all the pesticides in the air, they couldn't breathe. And another thing, there's just some very startling things, and this is not by any chance an exhaustive list of what's in the air, but one of the things that I was just stunned to hear about was Sahara dust. Okay, you think of Sahara dust. At first when I heard it, I thought, oh, dust from the Sahara Desert is blowing in here. Isn't that an interesting thing, you know? Don't we have a small planet? Well, it is from the Sahara Desert, but it's not just the dust. The dust from the desert has kind of, almost like our dust storms, but not that severe. It has pulled up not only the desert sand dust, but all of the pollutants from that part of the world, from the Middle East. If you want to talk about the things that have happened with the chemical warfare, all of their own pollutants, all of their things that are up in their air, we happen to be on the prevailing winds of the Middle East, and it doesn't happen all the time, but there are times when those winds flow in and we get Sahara dust and all of their toxins dumped on top of us here in Dallas. It's kind of a scary thing, but it also makes us think about how small our planet is, and to think about something that someone drops in their toilet in the Sahara can come into our air, or something they drop on the ground, and it's the same for us. The things that we do here can affect our whole planet. Okay, water. I think we're a lot conscious about water these days, and we know most of us are drinking bottled water, and we know the things that can come through water and that are added to it, like chlorine and fluoride. These things are heavy metals, and they do accumulate in our bodies. And chlorine is a very, very toxic chemical. It's acidic, and it's bad for our hearts, among other things. Also, what can come through your tap is the debris from the old pipes through the whole city of Dallas that all your water is coming through, as well as organisms, viruses, and bacteria that survive the actual water processing and water clearing process in Dallas. You can still have some very resistant viruses come through. So I think most of us these days are either using bottled water or we're filtering at our faucets. One thing you might not know is that if you take a shower in the morning in Dallas without a shower filter, you may end up accumulating more chlorine in your body than if you drank a glass of water out of a tap. Mainly because the warm water actually causes chlorine, which can become a gas, to actually become a volatile gas. And in the morning when you're taking a shower and you're warm, all your pores are also much more open. So you can tend to assimilate that into the pores as well as breathe in the gas. And you're getting maybe 3, 4, 5 times as much chlorine in the morning shower as you would taking a glass of water from the tap. Just so that you know that. Okay, let's talk about food for a moment. And again, Dr. Royal just did a great job of kind of giving an entree to all of this. Let's separate food into fresh food and then packaged and processed food. We have to eat, you know, and we are what we eat. And if you go into the average grocery store today, if you buy some lettuce or some carrots or a cucumber or tomato for your salad, you're going to get a product that is pretty much laced with pesticides, among other things. There are so many pesticides and so many chemicals used. I was in a meeting not too long ago and there was a map of the country, and the map was showing the different regions and the different vegetables and crops, and the numbers were in the millions of pounds of how many pesticides per year are applied to our products. And I, being a fairly knowledgeable person about this, I was actually gasping when I saw potatoes, for example, in the potato growing regions. There are absolutely millions and millions of pounds of pesticides, herbicides, and different types of fertilizers that all contain chemicals. Mainly, one of the worst ingredients is phosphates that are applied to all of our crops, because the people that supply our food and the farmers are now, they're commercial growers. They're not very many of the mom and pop farmers, and their bottom line is they have to make money. And the way that they make money is to protect the size of their crop yield. The way they do that is all with chemicals. And so when you get a potato, you have to know that it's been covered in enough chemicals just to get it from the field outgrown into you. And meats, as far as beef, chicken, all of the meats that are raised now are raised with hormones, antibiotics, and very strange foods, including I had seen that for chicken, sometimes they will feed chicken sawdust or even cement dust, and things that are not even organic, in order for them to weigh more. And the way that the meat is processed has gone in the last 10 or 15 years from a very sanitary process in the meat packing plants to something where if something falls on the floor and there happens to be broken glass, they will sweep it all up in there. And this is in a very scary book called Fast Food Nation that is very even hard to read, but it really talks about the fast food industry and how fast food companies have pretty much become like the captors of the meat packing plants, because they buy most of the meat, so they can say what happens, and they drive down the wages and things like that. So what I'm wanting to tell you is the food source that we knew and that our parents knew is not the same food source. It is really a buyer beware and a consumer beware, and most of the time we really are kind of innocents going in and we don't really know everything that's in our food. So the meats, the hormones in meats are now causing girls to start their periods earlier. They're starting men to have more breast tissue and even creating more breast cancer in males, because the amount of hormones especially in the beef is just significant, and it's just to help them get fatter. So we are being given antibiotics and hormones, not even in prescriptions, when we cut into our steak or cut into our chicken. And that's a pretty scary thing. So, and if you think about the processed foods, anything that's in a package, we are in the convenience generation. We all work, we all have way too much to do. And picking up that package or driving through, it's like, sometimes it's survival. We either do that or we don't eat dinner. But we have to know, if we think about, if you take a carrot or a potato and you run it through a manufacturing process, what happens in that process is that because of the heat, because of the mechanical process that it goes through, the food becomes denatured. The nutrients are taken out of it, the flavor is taken out of it, the color is taken out of it, and by the time it comes out the other end, it looks like kind of a mash. And so it has to be pleasing to our taste, it has to be pleasing to our eye, and more than that, it has to have shelf life. Okay, it has to go put in that package, and it has to sit there for at least a couple of weeks or a couple of months. So what the manufacturers have to do is, first of all, put stuff back in, nutrients, like your bread is enriched with certain vitamins, okay? But they have to put in colors and flavors and stabilizers and preservatives. So when you look at the back of a package and you see like the basic ingredient might be wheat and then there might be all these like 14 different things, those are all the added chemicals. Now, even 20, 30 years ago, some of those chemicals were actually natural. Some of the flavors were derived from natural flavors. But these days, there is a wonderful group of laboratories along the New Jersey Turnpike called flavor laboratories. And there are people called flavor chemists. And their whole job, whole day, is to do nothing but find more types of chemicals that mimic the exact flavors that people want in their food. All of these chemicals are now synthetically based. Most of them are petroleum based. Petroleum-based chemicals do not break down in the human body. They're stored. And it's part of this thing which we call a toxic load. As you eat more and more toxins or more chemicals, as we breathe them, as we get the chlorine and all that, it's kind of like the old-timey rain barrel where a little bit of rain falls in, a little bit more, and then the amount increases. And each of us has a critical mass. And at some point, our toxic load gets to the point where something overflows and we start to get sick, or our digestion doesn't work, or we start to get foggy thinking, and everyone is different. That's one of the things about chemical sensitivity, environmental toxins. It's a very difficult area because everybody's body is different and reacts differently to all this stuff that's gone into it. So when you drive by a fast food place, you're really getting a lot of these toxins because the fast food manufacturers have a vested interest in you having an experience in that moment. When you open up that hamburger, you smell the smell, you taste the taste, and they have a very big vested interest in you coming back the next time, maybe the next day. So it has to taste exactly the same, and it has to be very pleasing. And it takes a lot of chemicals to make those fries taste exactly the same every single time all over the country. So you think about the fact that potatoes have a natural life cycle, and they taste a little differently in the fall than they do in the spring or the summer. And the fast food restaurants don't want that to happen, so they have chemical processes and additives where that potato has to taste the same in California, in Boston, in New Mexico, at any given time of the year. Kind of scary when you think about it. So what do? We think about eating food in its most natural whole form, and we think about eating it more organic. Because the more organic you can get of food, the less you know it's going to be tainted with all the chemicals. Yes, it's really expensive. So my recommendation is if you cannot eat everything organic, try for organic meats because that's going to give you the best protection. And when you buy your vegetables, you buy them at the regular supermarket, peel them or wash them with a really good vegetable wash. Take a lot of the stuff off the skins and that'll help you. But another thing that I try to tell people is we are really the captives of Madison Avenue and all of the media. And, this tastes good, this is going to make you slim, and this is going to make your face, if you got milk, you're going to look better and all this. But the thing we need to ask ourselves when we have anything in our hand and we're about to eat it, good food, bad food, whatever, is this. What is going to be the effect of this food when it passes my taste buds and my lips and it passes my throat? What is the reaction? What is going to be the fuel effect? What is the chemical reaction in this food? Will my body be able to handle it? Will it like it? Will it have nutrition? So my shorthand for that is food as fuel. Food as fuel. What is going to be the best fuel to run this vehicle that is my incredibly intelligent body? Now, all of you have cars. Most of you probably already drove. All of you drove here. You have a car and it's not a diesel. You would never think of driving up to the gas station, if diesel happened to be cheaper that day, putting diesel in your car and not regular unleaded gas. And you'll know why, because diesel doesn't work in a regular motor. And cars are very much replaceable. Take out the parts, take out the engine, throw another one in there. Our bodies are not like that. They cannot handle that. Their parts are not replaceable except for a few organs in remarkable situations. And so we need to be thinking about the fuel for our bodies as much as we're concerned about the fuel for our cars and our lawnmowers and our other tools that we really understand their process. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about personal care products. What's in your shower? How about your shampoos, What do you use for your body shampoo, your soaps? What kind of fragrances do you use? We love this stuff. I mean, it makes us smell good. It has the experience in the shower when it gets warm and everything. And about 30 years ago, those fragrances that were in our perfumes, that were in our shampoos, were actually flower essences from real live flowers. But those flavor chemists in New Jersey have really found a way to short circuit that and get lots less expensive ways to make our stuff smell even better. The only problem is that, again, they're synthetic, they're petrochemical. Some of them have been found even to be carcinogenic, they're acidic, they're alcohols. And for the people who make these products, it really doesn't matter what they are, it matters their effect. How do they smell, how do they feel? And when you are putting petrochemicals in your body, on your scalp, you know, washing with those wonderful, soft body shampoos. I mean, I love the way they smell too. But what's in them is oils, petrochemical oils that actually begin to clog the pores. And most of us know that your skin is the largest detox organ in the body. When you begin to plug up the pores of that detox organ, you have now closed off another exit for the toxins that the body's trying to release. And that's when you start having things like rashes and eczema and psoriasis and things like that, because the junk is trying to get out of the body and it's having a hard time. A word about antiperspirant deodorants. I think we all know by this time, probably speaking to the choir here, about aluminum chlorhydrate. Aluminum chlorhydrate is aluminum, and it's in a substance that actually closes off the pores of your underarms. When that happens, all the toxins are backed up into the mini lymph nodes that are under those arms. And aluminum chlorhydrate in antiperspirants has been implicated in breast cancer. So we are now having to think much more clearly and much more deeply about the things we put on our bodies and in our bodies. Because the people out there, you know, Dr. Royal said the people that make drugs, the pharmaceutical companies, do not have your best interest in mind. The makers of the products, the sellers of these products, also do not have our best interest in mind. They don't care if we smell good. They don't care if we like what smells in our shower. They don't care if we have candles that are scented. They are making money, and they're making products attractive to us. Thank you. So my recommendation to you is this. Oh, let me just say one more thing about cleaning products. What's under your sink? If it's chlorine bleaches, if it's things like Windex and detergents that have phosphates in them, these are also coming into our bodies. They're staying in our clothes. And phosphates, by the way, are acids. They are an active ingredient in cleaners, but they do not biodegrade as well. So they're part of that toxic load, and they are a big part of the toxic load of the planet. If you've ever been to the beach in the last few years, you've seen every once in a while suds, literally like suds, wash up on the beach in the tide. That is phosphates. Those phosphates have come into our oceans from the runoff of all the industrial companies that use phosphates for cleaning their equipment and things like that. But it's also from our sewage, because as you wash your clothes and all those phosphates and that runs out, where does it go? It goes in the sewage, and the sewage runs into the ocean. So I'm asking you to be, first of all, conscious of your own body, and to help you detox by looking at all the products in your home. They smell good, read the label and see if it's a synthetic fragrance or if it is a natural fragrance. Start being simple. You know, safety begins at home. If you start with one little thing, go to Whole Foods, go to Central Market, find a shampoo that has a natural fragrance or no fragrance and a few products in it, few ingredients. The fewer ingredients, the simpler, the easier on your body. And then start looking under your sink. There are many, many great cleaners. Grape seed extract, for example, is a great disinfectant, and it has no chlorine bleach in it. Grape seed extract. And you can just go to Whole Foods, and there's a great book that I want to introduce you to. It's called Less Toxic Alternatives, written by one of my associates at the Environmental Health Center. And if you want, I will be up there. I can take orders for this. She's got a lot of information about the environment, and it's just a veritable glossary of alternative products and things you can actually make in your kitchen as cleaners that are totally safe. It's called Less Toxic Alternatives. Also has some handouts here I'd like to give you. So we need to be consumers that are more conscious about our bodies and about the environment. And remember that organic food's now coming to Walmart and Target. Why is that? Because we want more organic food. Our dollars are the things that will press for safer products. If we put our money behind safer products, the manufacturers will make the things that we want. So I am just urging you to be a more conscious consumer for yourself, for your health, and also for the planet. And there are things that we can do to start with ourselves to help ourselves be healthier. And as we get healthy inside, the planet gets healthier outside. Thank you.